SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Hi, this is Dr. Andy Barlow with the Chiropractic Physician Center of Tupelo and author of the #1 best-selling book, The Code Breaker. Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? Then call my office at 662-844-1414 and order my new book, The Code Breaker.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. Hello. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Midday SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, on the road again. We have relocated the Element Well Studios out to Mississippi Blood Services in Flowood, Mississippi on Treetops Boulevard, just off of Lakeland Drive. We'll be guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this incredibly wet
hump day.
Man, you row your boat to the SuperTalk headquarters there this morning, Rhino?
No, but I did get here, and apparently the umbrella I thought I put in the car was not in the car, so I had to make a quick dash through the rain, and I'm glad I'm wearing the new genteel SuperTalk athletic wear so it'll dry quickly.
I mean, it came a bit of a deluge. I heard the sirens going off this morning. The weather sirens were going off about 5:30 in my area, and it did wake me up. And I, of course, turned on the television to check out the latest on the weather. I checked my phone, my handy weather app there, and you could see lots of red and yellow just moving across the Magnolia State. But the thing you don't like to see, Rhino, is those little polygons of red outlined in red and yellow indicating severe weather, even a tornado warning. And so there were a suite of tornado warnings across the state. I think they're either out or they've moved out of this area, the central Mississippi area. What's the latest? And we've got, by the way, someone from the National Weather Service is going to join us at 10:37 on Middays. Call in and give us a complete and full update. Anything else you're aware of at this point?
The only warning I see that could still be active, I haven't got an update on it in about 15 minutes, is the tornado warning that includes Hickory and Chunky, Mississippi, but that should be expiring in the next 6 to 7 minutes.
Okay, yeah, over towards the eastern part of the state, towards Meridian. I'm looking at that as well. Lots of red and yellow in that area as this front moves through. It's a very slow-moving front because based on the track that I've watched the last 3 or 4 hours, it's moving more on a southwest to northeast trajectory and just kind of staying over the area, not really moving out, just a train of storms moving up that line from the southwest to the northeast. Still draped, looking at the present radar, still draped right over the central Mississippi area, and kind of a line, I guess, that extends from looks like north of Baton Rouge, west of Baton Rouge, all the way across the state of Mississippi on in to Alabama, around the Columbus, Mississippi, West Point area. And it almost looks to me like, Rhino, it's moving more from the south to the north is kind of the way it will exit our area as this cold front is circulating and going to push much colder air into the Magnolia State, as I understand, like high of in the low 50s or around 50 for the weekend, which the hunters are all celebrating because that is more appropriate deer hunting weather. Is that kind of what you're seeing in the forecast?
Oh yeah, it looks like we're finally going to get some December-like weather, and when the weather dips, especially when it dips quickly, think about it like if you're at a football game and it's really cold and you need to stand up and get the blood pumping so you warm up a little bit. The deer have to do the same thing, so that gets them moving.
Yeah, exactly. So they're all excited because we really haven't had too many days that you would consider to be more traditional deer hunting weather, right? Which is usually cold and sometimes wet. Seems like how they like it. And then the ducks, got that coming up as well, right? Duck season.
I'm going to be honest. I actually don't know a whole lot about duck season, so I couldn't comment.
Well, I know we got a lot of smart folks among our audience, so they'll probably send us something, let us know, and we would appreciate that. But we are at Mississippi Blood Services today, and again, the need is urgent for folks to come out and donate blood. The demand is exceeding supply. We need you to come out, and even though it is raining a bit, it looks like the severe weather has moved out of our area here in Flowood, Mississippi, and it just seems to me, just kind of looking at the radar, eyeballing it, we're an hour or maybe less from being totally out of the precipitation. But come on out, see us, and donate some blood. Again, someone from the National Weather Service is going to join us at 10:37. Also, Brittany Mitchell with Mississippi Blood Services will be on middays in the final segment of the 3 hours at 10:50, 11:50, and 12:50. We've also got, really excited about this, Flint Minshew, who is a personal friend of Coach Mike Leach, and also, of course, the father of NFL quarterback Gardner Minshew, who played for Coach Leach at Washington State. And what an interesting journey Gardner has had, a product of Brandon High School, all the way to the NFL with a couple of stops en route in his college career, including one at Washington State, playing for the late, great Coach Mike Leach. Also got Senator Josh Harkins, represents Rankin County, District 20, chairperson of the Senate Finance Committee. He'll be here at Mississippi Blood Services in the Element Well Studios at 12:05. And yeah, I don't know all the details, but Jerry in Pontotoc sent us a message here about 2 police officers tragically murdered in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. And I guess what maybe you know more than I do about this at this point, Rhino. I had breakfast with a group this morning that where I learned about this tragic event, and apparently they were responding to some sort of issue at a motel, right? And were ambushed by someone staying at the hotel who was armed and used a gun to murder these 2 officers. That's about all I know at this point.
Yeah, the reporting has been that there was a call to the Motel 6. The officers responded to check on it, and they were ambushed by a woman with a firearm that after she used the firearm on the officers, she turned the gun on herself.
Wow, yeah. Scary Gary's out here with me. He just told me the same thing. So we don't know anything else but that at this point, do we? I haven't seen any other details, but this is once again awful. And it makes you really think about just how much these folks that wear the uniform in law enforcement, they just don't know. I mean, they're in harm's way constantly, and here they are doing their job, responding to a call, not expecting this, obviously, thinking they're going to perhaps prevent some sort of acts of violence and an altercation, but instead they get ambushed by some fool that unloads on them and then turns it on herself. What the heck is going on here? I mean, that's all we know, right, at this point, Rhino. I don't think there are any other details, but
I haven't seen an update.
Deeply saddened and disturbed to hear this, and our, of course, thoughts and prayers and hearts go out to the families of these two officers that were essentially ambushed and murdered is what it was. And Jerry in Pontotoc points out where the professional athletes that take a knee and protest law enforcement in this country. And I agree with you, Jerry. It's maddening. Now, again, we've said it so many times on the program. Being a police officer, being in law enforcement, it's a profession. It's a profession that consists of people, human beings. We ain't perfect. And there certainly are some, as is the case in all professions, that dishonor the profession. But they are the teeny tiny sliver of a fraction of a minuscule of them. But yet, once again, we have people in this country that groupthink, and they assign people into groups. It's collectivism, and so everybody's like that. Well, these are just two people doing their job. And we don't know anything else about the officers, but they're just doing their job. They're not engaged in any kind of police brutality or police abuse. But if you listen to the left, they would tell you that's every single person who puts on the uniform that wears the blue, which is insane. It's ridiculous. It's inaccurate. It's a mischaracterization. And they don't deserve, honestly, the protection of these people when they disrespect it by protesting and taking a knee at a professional sports event. But you know what? They do it anyhow. They do it anyhow. These people need to be aware that only exists in this country. We're stepping aside for a break right here. MidDays is at Mississippi Blood Services today. Come by and see us. The need for blood is great. Please come by and donate. Coming back with more, and then we've got someone from the National Weather Service joining us to give us an update.
Check it out. Let's do this. The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
On the island to the Sunset Strip, somebody's gonna make a happy trip tonight while the moon is bright. He's gonna have a bag of crazy toys to give the corners of the
Welcome back, everyone, to Middays, SuperTalk, Mississippi. I couldn't find any other details. Rhino, I don't know if you searched as well on this tragic incident in Bay St. Louis this morning where two police officers were shot and killed at a Motel 6 on Highway 90. And it's being reported in the national news media as well. It's just so tragic and so sad, and it does infuriate you to some extent, for sure, as Jerry in Pontotoc points out, when you see these people that protest law enforcement, and they should not protest the entire profession and all the organizations that comprise law enforcement. If you want to protest the scant, teeny tiny few that disrespect the profession and act inappropriately and inconsistent with policy, okay, fine. But to just virtue signal and really calling attention to yourself in a selfish fashion by kneeling or constant demonizing of law enforcement and all this defund the police nonsense, and even Vice President Kamala Harris contributing to a bail fund to release people that break the law. It's just all for political expediency and personal gain and selfishness, and all these woke DAs all over the place that honestly disrespect law enforcement by not pursuing more rigorous prosecution of those who break the law, who are arrested, and then, of course, go through the entire justice process only to find them back on the streets again committing the same dang crimes. Really ridiculous. And we have a president, unfortunately, that won't say a lot about it. Heck, it feels like the entire Democrat Party won't even acknowledge or admit that we have a crime problem in this country. And the crime problem is a direct result of their policies and their unwillingness to lock people up for committing these crimes, because they're tracking all sorts of silly statistics about the racial makeup of the criminals and who gets prosecuted, who gets sentenced. They're more concerned about that. Well, you know what? It shouldn't matter. That's racism in effect. If you commit the crime, you should pay the price and suffer the consequences, period, irregardless of your race. But that's what it's all about. It's virtue signaling, it's capitulating, it's appeasing certain factions in this country rather than consistent application of the law. It's ridiculous. Charlie and Brandon text in, I spent 30 years in law enforcement. I lost many friends. The thought of getting killed was always in the back of my head. I had no fear of it, but was always concerned at this time of year. I did not want my children to remember Christmas in such a way. Now this is how the families of the 2 officers in Bay St. Louis will remember their Christmas. You're so right, Charlie, and so sad, and thank you for your service, for taking the risk and putting your life on the line so that we could be safeguarded. We appreciate that. I think I represent, with those statements, the sentiments of the MidDays audience here. Thomas in Greenwood says, it's a tragedy. I just don't think there's anything government can do to dissuade someone who plans to die in the commission of their plot. And virtue signaling won't help either. The only possible cure would be to quit vilifying law enforcement. Yeah, it's a good point, Thomas, maybe, but in this case, who knows, what kind of brain short circuits may have been going on with this perpetrator who ultimately took their own life. It's just impossible to even guess and speculate on that. No doubt those are the most difficult and challenging situations where they don't value their own life, so they certainly don't value someone else's. But I would venture to say that if you did some research into that individual's background, you'd find they had a troubled upbringing in life. And once again, it's likely, and again, I'm just speculating here, it's likely just because statistics say it's likely that this person was not brought up in a traditional nuclear family, something that the left is working overtime to, quote, dismantle. And we pay the price. It often manifests itself in this sort of violent acts. Everyone knows what is going on at these hotels in every town, says Kyle. Drugs, prostitution, and trafficking. This should have been shut down everywhere years ago, but it's more prevalent than ever. I fear you're right, Kyle, and we've had discussions with the Attorney General, with law enforcement in the area that have discussed certainly the flow of drugs and human trafficking. It does seem to occur often at these hotels, and sometimes it appears the hotel attendants are in on the scheme, and have heard there's others that maybe even in government that are in on this scheme. Again, I'm certainly not indicting anyone specifically here, but those have been rather consistent reports where we've got corruption, shocking, right, going on as well. Extremely sad. And again, God bless the families of these officers in Bay St. Louis who lost their life in the line of duty. Gerard, is it just as possible that she had a history of drug abuse, says Mose? Absolutely, sure. But, folks are likely to go down that path, again, when there's something missing in their lives, in their childhood. Statistically, that is a higher probability. And no doubt that what's going on with drug abuse in this country, and the flow of drugs is a serious problem that we certainly should all be cognizant of and aware of and disturbed by. And it's a tough thing to address, without a doubt. Well, let's see. Ben from Madison says, awful, so sad to hear that. Certainly going to be thinking and praying for their loved ones today. Appreciate that. Yes, I saw, again, a minimal amount of information that is being reported by even the national media, but we'll see what we can find out and, of course, pass it on to you. Turn our attention a bit to sports. Of course, yesterday we discussed the passing of Mississippi State head football coach Mike Leach, and as we pointed out in the prior segment, we've got Flint Minshew, a personal friend of Coach Leach, and also the father of NFL quarterback Gardner Minshew. He's going to join us here at Mississippi Blood Services in the Element Well Studios at 11:05. Looking forward to that conversation. But over at Jackson State, got to be aware and stay aware of the fact that Coach Prime took a job at the University of Colorado, the Colorado Buffaloes. He's the head coach out there now, so he left a void in the head coaching spot at Jackson State. Athletic director Ashley Robinson at JSU announced that wide receivers coach T.C. Taylor is going to be the new head coach of Jackson State, succeeding Deion Sanders. So he really only had to look down the hall for his next coach, did A.D. Ashley Robinson. Taylor said, quote, "It means everything to be named head coach. It means coming up as a kid, being a fan, in that, in parentheses, Veterans Memorial Stadium. It has been a dream of mine to be a coach here, but to be a head coach with some of the names that have been through here, W.C. Gordon, James Carson, and Coach Prime Sanders, those are big shoes to fill, but I am excited." Robinson said that he was looking for an offensive-minded coach. He was an offensive coordinator for 2 seasons and coached wide receivers this year under Sanders. So got his man, T.C. Taylor, the next head coach of Jackson State University. It's time for a break here on Middays. We are at Mississippi Blood Services on Treetops Boulevard off of Lakeland Drive in Flowood, Mississippi. Coming up next, we've got a meteorologist from the National Weather Service to give us an update on the severe weather that's raking across the state of Mississippi. Stay with us.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Welcome to our shop
on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Okay, now you have a good one.
Welcome back, everyone. We are at Mississippi Blood Services today, Midday, SuperTalk Mississippi. Please come out and donate blood. The need is very urgent. Joining us now is Michael Edmonston, senior meteorologist with the National Weather Service. Michael, good morning. Thanks for joining Middays. Give us an update, please.
Yes, good morning. Currently, we're in a rather bit of a lull. We have a stalled boundary right across the Natchez Trace, and we're continuing to monitor for flash flooding. We've already had some flood reports in backyards, people sending pictures in of backyards flooded and some street flooding around the area. But what we're really monitoring is a disturbance that's moving into East Texas that's going to swing across Mississippi later this afternoon and evening, and that's going to help redevelop some more vigorous storms, and we're going to see an even greater enhanced threat across southeast Mississippi for tornadoes, some even strong. Hail up to the size of golf balls, and including damaging wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour. Again, this is pretty much going to be across southeast Mississippi during the afternoon and maybe into the early evening hours before it shifts east into Alabama. So currently we still have a tornado watch in effect for Rankin County all the way down Brookhaven and then up to Kemper County. That expires at 1 p.m., so there'll be another tornado watch coming out to cover the rest of the afternoon and into the evening hours until the cold front shifts southeast, ending the severe threat. But until then, there will be a threat of severe weather, including flash flooding across much of the southeast part of Mississippi.
Gotcha. What about any severe weather that's already moved through the area? Have there been any reports of tornadoes touching down, doing damage, hail, or just strong winds?
Okay, we haven't had any reports of hail at this point, even though there was a couple of storms down in the early, down around Brookhaven and south central Mississippi earlier in the morning. What we have seen is, and have received, is indications on radar. We can do radar-confirmed tornadoes. There's a debris signature that we look for as meteorologists on the radar that helps us identify not just the potential of a storm-producing tornado, but actual damage indicating, damage flying or debris flying aloft indicated by the radar aloft. So we're able to confirm some that way, but we have not sent out any damage survey teams to assess any type of rating on tornadoes. We've issued probably upwards of 15 to 20 tornado warnings at this point, and probably have at least 10 that we're considering will be confirmed tornadoes. So it's already been, an outbreak across the area, and it looks like we're kind of in a lull right now, but it's not over yet, especially for the southeastern portions of Mississippi. Be aware later this afternoon and into the early evening hours.
So just looking at the present radar picture, it looks like the patch of rain that's fairly moderate to fairly strong is kind of draped across the center part of the state, but it looks like it's moving on more of a northeasterly track. That seems a little unusual, does it not, when we have a cold front approaching from the west?
No, it's not, because the cold front has already approached and stalled out. But that disturbance that I was talking about, it's moving in from the west. It's moving into, or going across East Texas now, will be tracking across Louisiana this afternoon, will generate another surface low that's basically south of Lake Charles area, almost into the northwest Gulf. That'll be riding from southwest to northeast up along the stalled front and help regenerate everything. And then once it clears out, everything will be shifting, like I said, east into Alabama. But southwest to northeast, that's pretty much the main track of the storm this time of year. I mean, that's what gets our cold fronts coming down in here, and things clear out from the west behind the cold front. But we've got a stalled boundary right now. So what you're seeing on the radar is accurate. I mean, and they're still monitoring for flooding. Matter of fact, I think we got a flash flood warning right now that goes across Natchez. So some of that rain's locally heavy and stacking up.
Okay. So tell us again about what you're concerned about later on in the day with this disturbance that's presently in East Texas. Share that with us again.
Okay. Yeah. Like you said, basically we have a stalled boundary that's pretty close to the Natchez Trace corridor, and this boundary is just going to meander here for the next couple of hours. But as that disturbance that's currently over East Texas moves across Louisiana, we'll start to see a regeneration of a surface low to the southwest that'll ride up the stalled boundary and start generating stronger storms. And these storms will be capable of spawning tornadoes, hail the size of golf balls, and producing damaging wind threats. And some of the tornadoes would be strong. That's a possibility, EF2 or greater, especially across our far southeast, Lamar, Marion, and Forest counties, and maybe even up into Jones. And we already currently have a tornado watch box existing across the area, even though we don't have any warnings at this time, but we're expecting additional warnings and numerous tornado warnings across southeast Mississippi later this afternoon.
Okay. Gotcha. And then when can we expect it to be out of the state of Mississippi, the rain, the storms, et cetera, later on this evening?
Yes. It should all be over by midnight. We're hoping that it's out of our area before 9 p.m. But
Gotcha. What's in store for us after that, after the front moves through?
Cooler and drier weather. It looks like we'll be going colder than normal. We've been warmer than normal lately, but we'll start seeing some mornings around freezing and below and dry weather. There is one other little disturbance that may bring light rain to the southern portions of Mississippi Saturday night, but for the most part, it looks dry and colder than normal.
Okay. Well, that certainly will be welcome. Michael, appreciate you calling into Middays and giving us an update. Take care. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. Bye.
All right, folks, there you have it. I'm looking at this big old batch of rain that's just draped right on top of the central area of Mississippi, diagonally extending from the river down in the southwest corner of the state all the way up into the Columbus and West Point area, and just starting to advance on into the state of Alabama. But we should be weather aware for additional severe weather, as Michael informed us of from the National Weather Service, moving into the area later on tonight, it sounds like. So please be aware of that and take cover as necessary. We'll keep you updated as much as we can here. So yesterday, President Biden signed the same-sex marriage bill. But, this is just more of this, I don't even know what to call it. It's just theatrics is what I'm going to call it. He included, it was quite a lavish ceremony at the White House, included drag queens. Why do we have to have drag queens? What's this all about? How do drag queens coincide with the title of this legislation, Respect for Marriage Act? It was kind of a bizarre ceremony, honestly, that had Washington elites. You had activist musicians on hand, including Cyndi Lauper, drag queens. This was, of course, celebrated by the left. It was witnessed by thousands of people on the White House South Lawn who honestly were barraged with music from non-binary English singer Sam Smith, as we said earlier, musician Cyndi Lauper. The president, it is said, personally invited a number of drag queens to attend the ceremony, some of whom have performed in front of children. Again, you want to go be a drag queen and engage in entertainment for adults? Knock yourself out. Thrusting that on children? Nope, ain't right under any circumstances. To be a non-binary drag artist invited to the White House is something I never imagined would happen, said drag queen Marty Gould Cummings, wrote that on Instagram. Thank you, President and Dr. Biden, for inviting me to this historic bill signing. Grateful doesn't begin to express the emotions I feel. This just seems, Rhino, like another situation where we are tied up in knots like a pretzel trying to appease, again, a sliver of the population. Now, concerns about the legislation in general are kind of a separate matter, but why all the fanfare for something like this? I want to see the president sign a tax cuts bill. Can I get an invitation to that? I'll be there with bells on celebrating that one. Can we make that happen? Good grief. This is so crazy. And later on in the program, Rhino's going to play a video I sent him where Joe Biden made some remarks concerning this legislation. We're stepping aside for a break right here. When we come back, Brittany Mitchell with Mississippi Blood Services. Stay with us.
systems go.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
So this is Christmas, and what have you done? Another year over, and a new one just begun.
Welcome back, everyone, to Middays, SuperTalk Mississippi. The Element Well Studios relocated to Mississippi Blood Services in Flowood, Mississippi, the headquarters. Joining us now, Brittany Mitchell with Mississippi Blood Services. Brittany, good to have you on. Good to be here again.
Thank you. It's nice to be here, and thank you for being here today.
All right, tell us what we need. We need blood, right?
We do, always, especially on days like today.
Yeah.
With all the weather that's been going on.
Yeah, I'm worried about that. I hope it doesn't deter people from coming out, because I think we've got a break in the severe weather, according to what the National Weather Service meteorologist Michael Edmonston just informed us in the last segment. So get in your vehicle and come on down here to Mississippi Blood Services in Flowood, Mississippi. And let's see, we've got other centers are having some stuff going on too as well today, right?
Yes.
Tell us what's going on.
Yes. So right now, when you donate at the Flowood, Oxford, or Cleveland Center, we are letting our donors receive their choice of either a very stylish embossed knit beanie or a 12-ounce ceramic campfire mug that includes a packet of hot chocolate, so you can stay cozy and warm.
Yeah, and because it's going to get cold. It's what the meteorologist just told us after this rain moves through here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what else we have going on specifically at the Flowood facility related to the passing, the tragic death of Coach Mike Leach? What we got going on there?
Well, first and foremost, our thoughts are with his family and the entire Mississippi State University community. And to honor his memory, we'll be giving our blood donors a desk-sized cowbell at the Flowood Main Center, and only while supplies last. So when they're gone, they're gone. But
yeah, got it. I saw it. It's pretty cool too. Santa? We got something going on with Santa?
Yes, it's actually a really big giveaway that is sponsored by Blood Centers of America. So there's several other blood centers across the country participating. So all donors that have donated between November 25th until December 16th can enter. What you'll do is, during your donation or even after, you just take a picture, post it on social media by using the hashtag Santa's Blood Donors, and complete a form to register. But this is the cool part. There are so many different gifts, and big ones at that: Dyson hair dryers, AirPod Pros. There was a big fireplace, fire pit oven for pizzas.
Wow.
Set like a huge list of items that you could potentially win by entering.
All right, so tell our folks a little bit about the process of donating blood.
Yep. Well, it only takes about 30 minutes tops. That's from checking in, doing your health questionnaire and your evaluation. You sit in the chair, watch a show, and before you know it, about 10 minutes later, if you're doing whole blood, you just sit in the canteen area and eat some snacks, and you're on your way.
Yeah, it's really simple. It's painless. The folks here are great. They're so friendly, so good to work with. They're passionate about what they do, and they know they are really helping often save someone's life.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. They're wonderful. They're a wonderful team. We love to have them here.
Yeah. All right, so we're in Flowood, Mississippi, and we've got this is a spacious facility. It's top flight. It's first class, no doubt about it. And so it's very comfortable. You get to lay down on a cot, on a bed, essentially, while the blood is being drawn, and the folks are right there with you. The technicians are checking on you, making sure everything's good. It's just it's painless process and uneventful. It gets you in, gets you out. And get some snacks before you get out of here, and you're good to go, and even some goodies while we have them. Right?
You're giving the gift of life to others, so we're going to give you a little gift too.
Yeah, that's truly awesome. I know we always ask this, and it seems like the question is, we need all types of blood, but anything in particular where we've got a particular shortage right now?
I will say, Always. All blood types are needed. You never know, especially with natural disasters, especially with all these tornadoes going on. But speaking on that, O negative is something that's a universal blood type, so anyone can receive it. And,
okay.
That's always something that we're looking for.
Will a person who donates blood learn what their type is if they don't know it when they come in and donate?
Mm-hmm. When you do donate blood, once everything is processed, about 2 to 3 days later, we have that information, and they can set up a donor portal and access it, or just give us a call for their blood type.
Anything that might prevent a person from being able to donate blood other than just a simple evaluation they get here? Any other restrictions with respect to, say, COVID, vaccines, etc.?
If you've gotten your COVID vaccine, that does not defer you.
Okay.
You could even donate on the same day. One thing, you do have to be 110 pounds, 17 or older. But certain medications might play into that.
Well, we can cover that in more detail in the next time you come on here an hour from now. But appreciate you coming on, folks. Once again, you heard Brittany. We need blood. We need all types. Come on by and see us in Flowood, Mississippi, at Mississippi Blood Services. We're stepping aside for a break right here for SuperTalk News and Fox News. When we come back, Flint Minshew, friend of Coach Mike Leach. Stay with us.
Merry Christmas
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone, to Midday Super Talk Mississippi. We thank you so much for joining us today. We are once again on location at Mississippi Blood Services, where the need is critical. Please come out and give the gift of life by donating blood. They take really good care of you. It's painless, it's simple, it's fast. Folks here are very friendly and have a servant's heart. So come on out and give blood, folks. You can't help, Rhino, but think about the great J.T. Williamson, who anytime we were here and he was, of course, fighting his illness, he would call in and join us remotely and really talk about his experience here at Mississippi Blood Services and how critical it was to his fight against that cancer that ravaged his body. And you recall, he always used the phrase, you just don't know what it's like until you're on the other side of the bag. And that just resonates, does it not? It sort of says it all right there, that when you need it, you're so appreciative for those that have answered the call to help their fellow human beings. And that's really what you're doing here. So please come on out and donate blood. Mississippi Blood Services across the state at all the various locations. Oxford, Cleveland, Neshoba General Hospital, they're all ready and willing and able to accept your generous donation of blood. We're waiting for Mr. Flint Minshew to join us. I think we're going to push him back, had a delay, and we're going to push him back to either the next segment or the one after that in this hour. Looking forward to that conversation. In the meantime, we had discussed earlier the drama, this big ceremony, the fanfare at the White House, on the White House lawn yesterday, in the signing of the Respect for Marriage Act. What an ordeal that was, with Joe Biden inviting his drag queen buddies. It says he made personal invitations and had other elitists and activists along these lines all on hand for this historic signing. Oh, gosh. And again, from a legislative perspective, I don't have a problem with it as long as it does not compel or force. And there's still a question. Force a religious organization, for example, a business, or public institutions, schools, when they have to in some way have to accommodate and act in a way that I think is harmful to children, or in a way that conflicts with their sincerely held religious beliefs, well, then you're infringing on another's rights. And that, I think, remains to be seen. You remember a couple of weeks ago we had Aaron Rice from the Mississippi Justice Institute, and he seemed to be comfortable with the language that it wouldn't do that. But, you know, when you put it out there in practice, once these bills get signed, they seem to evolve and take on another life. And the next thing you know, somebody's suing you because you won't bake a cake or do a website and all that sort of stuff. Well, that's just wrong. That's infringing on another's rights. That's never okay, in my view. But the president made a statement or two yesterday as part of this event, and I want you to listen here. I think Rhino's got it teed up for us.
Justice Thomas went even further, and he wrote the following, quote, "We should reconsider all the court's substantive due process precedents, including Griswold, Lawrence, Obergefell." That means he thinks we should reconsider whether you got the right access to contraception. And yes, we should reconsider whether you have the right to marry who you love. And that's not only the challenge ahead. When a person can be married in the morning and thrown out of a restaurant for being gay in the afternoon, this is still wrong.
Serious question here, folks. Let me repeat it. What he said there, his final statement. When a person can be married in the morning and thrown out of a restaurant for being gay in the afternoon, this is still wrong. I'm asking our audience, you only need send us a message if you can answer in the affirmative. Have you ever seen anybody be thrown out of a restaurant or a place of business for that matter, simply, exclusively, solely because they are gay? I can't think of that. I cannot think of a single example anywhere in my life on this earth. I cannot. Rhino, you ever seen that?
No, and I'm struggling to figure out how someone's sexuality even comes up when you're at a restaurant ordering food.
Right.
How would one determine someone else's sexuality over ham and eggs or a roast beef slider or steak and potato?
Couldn't agree more. And let me just say this. I would oppose such action. I could not condone such action. And keep this in mind. Even when it's a situation where we've got this case that's making its way through the Supreme Court right now, the one where a web developer refused to develop a website for a gay couple on religious beliefs, on the grounds of their sincerely held religious beliefs. Who could forget the cake baking case in Colorado, where the bakers who specialize in baking wedding cakes wouldn't do so for the wedding of a gay couple? Those situations are different because obviously they're getting intimate knowledge about the couples in this case. We're getting married, we want a website to feature. Well, that's pretty obvious, but as Rhino points out, you go into a restaurant, and let's keep this in mind. These people are in business to make money. They want to take your money. They want to perform services to take your money, but if they feel strongly enough from their religious convictions that they just can't do it, well, you got to respect that. Again, I believe that as a business, or any business in this country, has the right to do business with whom they want at whatever price and terms the parties agree to, regardless, unless they are bound by some contract or some condition of their license for being in that business. But this is government forcing. And in this case, Joe got it all wrong. You heard what he said. When Chief Justice Thomas discussed possibly revisiting those cases, he wasn't talking about that from a substance perspective. He was talking about it from a constitutional perspective. Of course, Joe and the Democrats, they're holding this as, well, these conservative Supreme Court justices, they want to outlaw totally contraceptives and interracial marriage and same-sex marriage in this country. No. They're wanting to overturn cases that frankly conflict with our Constitution, because there is no guarantee to such rights in our Constitution. They want to send it back to the states, just as what happened with the overturning of Roe through the Dobbs case filed by the state of Mississippi, the Attorney General of the state of Mississippi. Same deal. That's all he's saying here. Maybe this is something that doesn't belong at the federal level. It's not constitutionally protected, and it should be decided at the state level. Simple as that. And in the case of the people that were looking to get a cake baked for their wedding, I'm quite sure there were plenty of other bakers that would accommodate them and readily take their business, happily take it. It's the same with the website developer. Rhino pointed that out yesterday. It's like, wasn't it determined, Rhino, there's like another one a quarter mile or something away, based a quarter mile away, there are offices that would accommodate, so they weren't permanently harmed or harmed at all, honestly. That ought to be the issue, but
it's because liberals and Democrats have to fabricate this horrible, terrible world to live in for whatever weird, wacky ideology they have, to the point where it wasn't all that long ago that I want to say it was The Daily Show on Comedy Central sent two actors to act like a gay couple, two guys, to the Mississippi State Fair with a film crew trying to show that Mississippi was homophobic.
I remember
and they followed them around. They had stereotypical redneck outfits on and rainbow Dixie flags in their back pocket, and they didn't run into a single person that had a problem with them.
Well, I think that what we said at the top of the segment here, I couldn't condone that behavior either. If a restaurant tossed out a patron simply because of their sexual orientation, no, I couldn't support that. And I consider myself to be a fairly conservative individual, but they try to paint us all that because they get political value out of it by lying and misrepresenting us, mischaracterizing us. I can't stand it. We're taking a break here on Middays. We'll be back at Mississippi Blood Services in the Element Well Studios. Stay with us.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
I'll have a blue Christmas without you. I'll be so blue just thinking about you.
Welcome back, everyone, to Middays, SuperTalk Mississippi. So on the C Spire text line, we were just talking about this signing of the Respect for Marriage Act. Big old ceremony at the White House yesterday, making just a huge deal out of this. Guarantee you get more fanfare, more coverage on an event like that than you would something related to, let's say, law enforcement, some sort of heroic event. Guarantee you. Even the military, in my view, as much as Joe likes to kind of hold himself as this big supporter of the military and the men and women in our armed forces, I just don't think they'd get the same sort of reception, same sort of ceremony, same sort of pomp and circumstance. Really don't. DW in Madison on the C Spire text line says, unless that restaurant customer was advertising their sexual orientation, but even then, I just don't think, I'm not aware of any restaurateurs that would escort or ask that patrons leave the premises and not patronize the restaurant, not be allowed to eat in the restaurant. I just can't see it. I've never seen it, honestly. And I can't see it, but when when the president makes that sort of statement, you'd like to think you can rely on its veracity, that you could absolutely take it to the bank, that it's rooted in some examples.
Well, maybe we're personalizing this too much. Maybe it's just because Biden spends all his time in D.C. and in Vermont. Maybe there's just a whole bunch of bigots in D.C. and Vermont.
That's a good point. And Delaware is home. That's a good point. Maybe he's seeing it and witnessing it in the areas that would hold themselves up as being more tolerant, right? More diverse, more inclusive. I just don't see it. And obviously we live in a fairly conservative state, and I know there are a lot of folks in Mississippi that object on religious grounds to same-sex unions and marriage, and that's fine. I think we have to respect them for their beliefs, but they should respect others, of course. But I've never seen them get to a point where they want to discriminate against those people in that fashion. And by the way, refusing to do business with someone, that's not discrimination. I believe that is a protected right. A protected right, unless, of course, there's a contract or there is some licensing condition that says you can't do that. Well, that's different. You knew that going into it, so now you're breaching it. But if we get to a point, I mean, that is the essence of central planning government, big government socialism, is when they start telling you who you can and cannot do business with and what price you're going to charge for your services or goods. That's a problem. That's just a problem. CC in Senatobia says liberals have to make everything sound worse than it is. The truth isn't necessary, doesn't even factor in. It just seems like it, for political expediency. Someone actually asked earlier, Rhino, what is non-binary? Because we talked about, we discussed that it was reported that a number of non-binary individuals, self-described non-binary individuals, attended the ceremonies yesterday. And so essentially non-binary people, they could identify as just a separate, a third gender, not a traditional male or a female, but something else. They could, also called gender fluid, they could fluctuate gender identity without just being steadfast as a particular gender. They could have various sexual orientations as well, and not just a single. It's not the same as being intersex. I know that's one of the terms Rhino brings up, intersectionality, which I think the word intersex is derived from, it could be argued. Those people identify as either male or female, but non-binary people as a group just sort of vary. They're really could wake up one day and say that I'm this gender, and the next day I'm that gender, or I'm no gender. Just don't have a gender identity altogether.
It's basically a gussied up way of saying, pay attention to me. Look at me.
That's exactly right. So have you seen this report where a lady addressed a school board, and she came in dressed as a cat to mock the wokeness of the school board, because there was a member of the school board that talked in a voice that's lower than mine, deeper than mine. I listened to some audio, but yet he wanted to be referred to as Mrs.
It's ma'am.
Exactly. It's just upside down, but this is a person on a school board.
You will ignore what your eyes tell you. You will own nothing, and you will be happy.
That's exactly right. Mailman Clayton says, sounds like mostly BS. Bingo. I believe that's what Rhino just said. This is all about calling attention to oneself. These are just sad sacks. This is the only way they can get attention. Think about how you rise through the levels on the Maslow's hierarchy to the top ring on the pyramid. where you are self-actualized, meaning you don't need other people to tell you how great you are to have good inner feelings about yourself, your value to society. These people, they can't get off the bottom rung, which typically means you're just looking for the basic needs of food and water and air and subsistence to function, to live. I'd also put in that category people that require acclamation and adulation and attention from others. They're way down there at the bottom as well, and they generally don't produce a lot for society, honestly. It's just trying to get attention, and I guess they feel like they need it to function. Dan in Hattiesburg is concerned, says now they're going to try to force evangelical churches to perform same-sex marriages. And that, of course, is the concern, no doubt, Dan. And we share that concern, and we hope that's not the case. That would be over the line. That
it's also a surefire way for there to be a lawsuit that makes its way to the Supreme Court and gets it knocked down as unconstitutional.
Exactly. And by the way, that's a good point, Rhino, because now that it's enacted, the Supreme Court can't act unless there's a case before them. So there would have to be some sort of legitimate claim and case filed by some party or parties that felt like they were harmed in this situation by this law. And they then, of course, could take up a lawsuit. And you're right. It would traverse its way through the court hierarchy and likely end up at the Supreme Court, where they'd rule again that this law is unconstitutional. Oh, gosh. I just don't get it. I really don't. William in Greenville says pure mental illness. I assume William's talking about the non-binary stuff. And, if that's the case, William, then we want them to get help. If they're truly clinical and they've got a short circuit, what was it Colonel Potter said about Major Friedman, the psychiatrist that used to visit the MASH unit? He said, we need you to come in here, Sidney Freeman, and chase the cobwebs out of the brain. Yeah, that's kind of the way I see this as well. And that's fine. Let's help these people. What we don't want to do is what we're seeing in these schools we talked about a couple of days ago, is this love bombing stuff, right? Where someone starts even mentioning that maybe they're having a bit of gender dysphoria, and the next thing you know, all the teachers, or not all, but a good number of them in that particular school or that district, they're showering them with all this love bombing, which of course is the surest way to get young folks especially to keep doing whatever it is they did that got all that attention. It's diabolical, honestly. It's a scheme. It's a pernicious, nefarious scheme that it does nothing but harm young people in that particular case. Crazy stuff, no doubt about it. Going to pivot a bit to economics. We're up against a break right now, and I think we've got Mr. Flint Minshew at Mississippi Blood Services joining us next. I just want to pass this on. We are expecting an announcement later on today. It is scheduled from Chairman of the Fed, Jay Powell, will announce their decision on interest rates. Widely believed, expected that he's going to announce that the Fed decided to raise rates by half a point, 50 basis points, and that's what the market's expecting, and they're in the green right now. But I'm going to review Joe's speech from yesterday again later on in the program concerning inflation. We're coming right back with more. Stay with us.
Everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
It's gonna be a catfish Christmas. Santa's on the lake. He's dreading his way whip for fishing pole and a John boat for his sleigh.
Welcome back, everyone, to Midday Super Talk Mississippi. We are live at Mississippi Blood Services. Rhino, I don't know where you found that one, but that is pretty fitting for the state of Mississippi, and especially today with the torrential rains draped across especially the central part of the state. Joining us now in the Element Well studios here at Mississippi Blood Services is Mr. Flint Minshew, a personal friend of Coach Mike Leach, also the father of NFL quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. Gardner Minshew played his high school football not far from here in Brandon, right?
Right in Brandon, yes, sir.
All right, so Flint, appreciate you coming on, and of course the entire state of Mississippi is still mourning the loss of Coach Mike Leach. He touched so many, and his route took him across the entire country to land here in Mississippi.
Yes.
And I know that you got to be friends with him, I believe. I'm going to let you tell the story, but because Gardner ended up playing for him at Washington State when he was coach up there, right?
Yes, Coach Leach, very approachable, very always, just very outgoing and easy to speak with. I had no air about him. I tell people all the time he could have been on the phone with Donald Trump or somebody like myself and would have been the same person.
Yeah.
And
that's what made him special.
Made him special. He saw everybody the same. He had no ego about who he was. And he very well could have. But he's just a good soul, good person. And, of course, we could never repay what he did for my son and his career because he changed the course of his life.
Tell us how that came about.
So Gardner, not recruited out of high school, had no Division I offers, and played at junior college, and still not a lot of offers. Got a late offer to East Carolina, went up there, and so he graduated. Actually, had a degree from Northwest Community College and won a national championship, and got picked up by East Carolina. But he graduated in December of his junior year. So and this was before all the transfer portal was just a wide open.
Yeah.
And so he graduated and got an offer from Alabama. And, of course, that kind of made a few people raise eyebrows. He had quite a few other calls after that to come in. And then Washington State started reaching out. I think it was Coach Mealy, was reaching out, and he was kind of like, hey, man, he goes, what do you think? He goes, can you get to the games? I'm like, you don't worry about that. I'll get to the games.
Sure.
And sure enough, Leach calls him up, and you always hear the story, hey, you can go hold a clipboard at Alabama, or you can come up here and lead the nation in passing. And that verbatim is what he told him, and Gardner committed on the phone. It was one of the happiest days of all of our lives because it was a dream of Gardner's. Even like I coaching him in Pee Wee ball, we ran aspects of air raid even back then. So that was always a dream to play for Coach Leach, and so glad that came true.
And now he's playing quarterback in the National Football League.
Is, and not sure he would be there right now if it was not for that opportunity. And that's the one thing, talking to Gardner this week, and Coach Leach gave him an opportunity that even in Alabama, like they wanted him to come in and back up back up, and so they were really offering him a glorified GA spot, and Leach gave him an opportunity, and then also encouraged him to be himself. And I know y'all know his personality in a little bit, and Leach didn't. A lot of coaches wouldn't have been comfortable with that, and Leach encouraged him to be himself and go out there and have fun, and they, to this day, we're very good friends. Quick story, when he first got to Washington State, there's this app that the players were playing a joke on Gardner that, like, if they had my phone number and your phone number, you and I would think we were calling each other. Okay. And they would do that to Leach and Gardner. And so both of them would answer, and they'd be like, oh, well, hey, yeah. And then they'd talk for an hour and a half. Just like, so they were very close. And like I said, we're so sad. I mean, because he was still to this day a very good friend, talked to Gardner, encouraged him, still now.
And a friend of you too as well, right?
Yeah,
Clint?
We became friends just obviously through, we really got to hang out a lot when Gardner got to go do the ESPN award show and then the Johnny Unitas. So we went from Atlanta and then up to Baltimore for that. And one day in the airport, we're going through, and we're on a tight schedule. And, of course, we'd been out having a good time the night before in Atlanta. And Coach Leach disappears in the airport. And, of course, the AD and the SID are freaking out. And he had found a Popeye's chicken that was open at like 6 in the morning and rolls up with some chicken and biscuits and red beans and rice. Not for anybody else, just for him. But so always, there's 100 stories like that you could tell about him.
And that seems to be the consistent theme. Anybody that we've talked to or any accounts we've read about Coach Leach, he was first and foremost just a good guy that just liked to interact with people and enjoy life. He just happened to be a big-time football coach.
Just happened to be. That just was his job. And the good thing about Coach Leach is if you wanted to talk football, he would, but I would say 90% of the conversations we had zero to do with football.
Yeah.
We got him up to the fair a couple of years ago when they did that coaches panel, and Leach always had somebody with him to kind of keep him on track as far as his schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're in the cabin, and of course we're having a couple cocktails and sitting around telling stories, and this young kid is with him, and he is sweating, you can tell. And I was like, hey, what's going on? And he goes, man, we got a plane waiting on us in Philadelphia. We've got a room full of people in Jackson we got to go see. And finally, it literally just had to kick him out of the cabin. I'm like, man, Leach, this kid's going to lose his job if he doesn't get you to Philadelphia and get you on this plane. You got to go. And but he just lived in the moment. I told, 61 years old, but Leach lived more than somebody who would live 120 years,
full life.
And he got to coach football, which is what he wanted to do. He went to his wife, had a law degree from Pepperdine, and said, look, I can make a lot of money right now and be unhappy, or I can make practically no money and be happy. And his wife, Sharon, encouraged him and said, look, I want you to be happy. And,
Wow.
You see where they got him.
Is he, to your knowledge, Flint, the type of coach that really made a point to stay in touch with his former players even after they had passed through his system and moved on? Some, of course, ascend to the pro ranks. Some take up jobs in business.
Sure,
and so forth.
And I can speak just on on what I know about him and my son. And I know they were very close and stayed in contact regularly. Yes.
Yeah. Would there be situations where Gardner maybe dealing at that high level of competition had some challenges that maybe he'd consult with the coach
he
about?
Leaned on Coach Leach a lot, sure did. And Coach Leach always just encouraged, hey, you believe in yourself, you be yourself and do what you do, and it's going to work out. And
but that's interesting because his book, Swing the Sword.
Yes.
He talks about that specifically,
right.
that he's a big believer in just being who you are, being yourself, being the best you can be, and don't try to be something else or put on a front. And it sounds like he impressed that upon his players as well.
He did. You think about it, it gives you a lot of freedom to, when you can just be yourself and you don't have to worry, hey, senator walked in, or I better act this way or whatnot. And he was the same all the time.
Yeah.
And he encouraged his players to be that way too.
How just ironic is it, Flint, that you guys travel out to Washington for Gardner to live his dream, chasing that dream.
Sure.
Had that opportunity. He said it was the happiest day of your life when he called. And then he ends up back here in Mississippi, where you're from, coaching in Mississippi State.
Yeah, a little story. I heard Gardner one day on the phone, and I hear him going, no, if that's what you want, don't hire him. He's not going to change. And I was like, this was during COVID, and I'm like, who was that? He goes, man, that was Cohen. He wants to know if Leach takes this job, if he's going to change. And he's like, no, he's not going to change.
Yeah.
If that's what you want, don't hire him.
Right.
Because what he does works.
Right. Sage advice.
That's right.
And so essentially what Gardner was doing there was, I think, passing on to A.D. Cohen what Coach had taught him.
That's right. That's right. And, hey, just because he doesn't do it like Saban, it still works.
Right.
And that's one thing I'd say about his staff. Those guys were like family, and I'm glad Gardner got to play for him for obvious reasons, but also if he ever wants to go into coaching, you realize you don't have to do that 18 hours a day. You don't have to just be a jerk to everybody. And there's a lot of coaches, I would say, that are still on his staff that could probably have bigger jobs, moving on up the ladder.
Sure.
But I would say most of those guys have good family lives, and their kids are always around, and Leach always encouraged that.
Yeah. Being comfortable with your boss is a big part of being happy.
A lot of that, yes.
And that honestly, that trumps all the other possible financial rewards, because it ain't no fun. You may be making more money, but if you're miserable.
That's right.
And he just seemed like the type of person that was what they call not only a player's coach, but he endeared his coaching staff to him, and I think that's why he got the most out of his team.
Sure, because you look at wherever he was, Texas Tech, Washington State, Mississippi State, none of those schools are going to out-recruit.
Right.
They weren't out-recruiting Oregon or, USC or anybody in the Pac-12. And the smallest budget in the Pac-12. But the guys he got, they won a lot of games.
Flint, it's been a pleasure having you on the program.
Thank you so much.
And we are deeply saddened about the passing of the coach, and appreciate you coming in and sharing some of your personal experience.
Sure.
It means a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank
you. Yes, sir. We'll step aside for a break right here. Middays is at Mississippi Blood Services. We're returning with Brittany Mitchell from Mississippi Blood Services. Stay with us.
Savior is born.
It's so awesome! Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Come on, let's get on with the show.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Frosty the Snowman was a jolly, happy soul with a corncob pipe and a button nose and 2 eyes.
Welcome back, everyone. Midday Super Talk Mississippi on a very rainy
day.
It sure is. I mean, it is coming down in torrents out here now, Rhino, looking out the windows here at Mississippi Blood Services. Joining us now, Brittany Mitchell, Mississippi Blood Services. So tell us what we're looking for again here, Brittany.
We're looking for blood, all blood types. So y'all come see us. We've got some really great promotions going on. One of which, when you donate this week at our Flowood, Oxford, or Cleveland Center, you will receive your choice of either a knit embossed beanie or a campfire mug that includes a packet of hot chocolate.
All right, and let's talk about the hours in case somebody can't get by today while we're here on the air. Tell us about the hours, the locations, the hours.
Okay, our main center in Flowood is open from 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Oxford and Cleveland both are 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Flowood is open on the weekends. But we do have special hours coming up as well if you can't make it here in the next couple of days for the holidays. We'll have those special hours. So we're going to be opening the main center in Flowood on Sundays, which is pretty exciting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so tell us, who do you guys serve? So folks come in here and they donate blood. Obviously, the use of it in a transfusion where someone needs blood, is that hospitals, clinics, all the above? Where does it go from here? Kind of map out the route for us.
Mississippi hospitals.
Okay.
All throughout the state.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So you go to any of the Mississippi Blood Services locations to donate blood. It's harvested. And then it's, I assume, transported then to the hospitals where they inventory it? Is that right?
We deliver it to the hospitals.
Okay. So they have the facilities, the systems, and so forth, the resources to store that. And then it is called upon as they need it for various clinical uses.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's constant need.
Constant need. So are there any benefits with respect to availability of blood to a person who actually donates blood? And is there anything that they're entitled to if they perhaps need blood down the road? Is there anything like that? Just curious.
We do have donor protection plans.
Okay.
Now, I'm not the perfect person to answer all of the questions,
okay, sure.
But we have people that know all about it. But yes, there are incentives for our donors that can help in the times that they need blood.
All right. And let's once again, is there any particular ailments or that someone has to be concerned about that maybe would disqualify them for donating blood? Any sort of tests that might be run or just anything in their personal current health situation that would preclude them from donating?
The main thing I always go to are certain medications, which we have a medication deferral list on our website and our resources page. That's typically the main thing that we run into for deferrals. So just always double check if you know you're on medications that you're prescribed to. Just run through that list or give us a call and we'll be able to let you know.
From start to finish, from the time a person checks in to the time they exit us, and they get their little snacks on the way out, about how long?
30 minutes.
Yeah.
30 minutes.
Yeah. Painless, convenient, fast. Everybody here is so nice, so helpful, so grateful as well. And we just had a couple of folks come in the last segment that said, I heard you on the radio, came in to donate. And I mean, that's what it's all about.
Oh,
so
yeah,
they came
they're
in.
regulars.
Yeah, exactly. And we got them signed up and in and out. So and that's what we want. And then we have locations across the state, just to make sure that's understood as well today. And we got the goodies too, right?
We do have goodies. I will say, if you're not in the Cleveland, Flowood, or Oxford area, you can always visit our website to find a blood drive near you, or give us a call at 601-368-2673. But yeah, we've got a really great giveaway for all blood drives and centers. Our donors can enter into Santa's Big Giveaway, where they could potentially win a Dyson hairdryer, AirPod Pros. The list goes on. So please visit our website at msblood.com to see how to enter.
Okay, awesome. But the main thing is we need blood, and we need you to come out and help. Is this time of year, does that become a more is it seasonal in nature, Brittany, where you start to see the supplies run low just because people are traveling or out and about? And aren't able to take the time to come in and donate? Is that
absolutely.
Something? Okay.
All of the above. That is absolutely what it is.
Okay. Yeah, and so this time of year in particular is when you run into that because folks are engaged in their various holiday activities and so forth. But we need them to keep in mind that there's still folks that need blood.
Yes.
And often they need blood just to live. Mm-hmm. And so we need them to come in and donate. And don't let the rain scare you away. It's not severe weather, just a little rain. But you can get dropped off here under the breezeway and bring your umbrella as well to come from the parking lot. But you're going to get taken care of once you come inside.
Yep, it's dry in here.
Absolutely. Good point. Brittany Mitchell with Mississippi Blood Services has been our guest. We're stepping aside for Super Talk News and Fox News on middays. When we return, it's Senator Josh Harkins.
Hey Santa Claus, hey Santa Claus, hey Santa Claus, Santa Claus, Santa Claus, hey Santa Claus, hey Santa Claus, hey Santa Claus, Santa Claus, Santa Claus, hey Santa Claus, hey Santa Claus.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. Hello? You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone, to Midday Super Talk Mississippi. We are live at Mississippi Blood Services in Flowood, Mississippi, because we need blood. This time of year in particular, it is a critical need. And so we need you to come on out and donate blood. And they got some goodies for you here as well. It is painless. It is fast. It is convenient. And the folks here are really good at what they do, and they'll take good care of you. So please come on out and donate blood, the gift of life. Joining us now, Josh Harkins, Mississippi Senator from District 20, Rankin County. Good to see you, Senator.
Hello. How are you?
How about that discussion with Flint Minshew? That's pretty cool, wasn't it?
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Great stuff. I'm good friends with Flint, and I know their story is one that everybody you could listen to over and over. It's amazing what opportunities sometimes get put in front of you and seizing the opportunity, the moment, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Clearly, Coach Leach, impacted his NFL quarterback son quite a bit, and my guess is he'd credit him for where he is today, and they still kept in touch, as Flint shared with us as well, and I think that's just a mark of just a great person, but a great coach. And I said this yesterday on the air, Senator, and I share it with you. I don't know that I've ever seen a coach, that high-profile coach, that has had his picture taken with so many just random people, which is just shows to me just what a good person he was, because he was so accessible. He was not pretentious. He was not full of himself. He was just a regular guy that happened to be a big-time football coach, and I think that's what made him special. But I can't tell you the number of photos that I've seen of people out there. I know you've seen them as well, but that's a great testament.
I think he's an inquisitive individual. He was intentional. And the things that he would talk about were so off script of what you think he would want to talk about. You think if you're in get an opportunity to sit with him, he's going to talk about football. He talks about anything but football.
Yeah.
And I had the pleasure right when he got hired to go have dinner with him and a few other people in kind of a really private setting, and I sat down at 6 o'clock, and I finally looked at Dr. Keenum at 12:30 in the morning and told him I had to go home. But he was it was one after another, a story, just something, you talk about something here locally, and then he'll opine about how he knew a guy that was either from Mississippi or knew something about an event in Mississippi or somebody tied to Mississippi, and it was fascinating to sit there and listen to him. You talk about any subject. I mean, it can be from Indians to girls softball to water skiing or something. The guy had he was one of those guys that you could literally listen to all night, and it never got old. It got to where the only person remaining in the restaurant was the chef and the owner, and everybody else was gone.
To them,
he was like, all right.
Super smart guy.
Yeah,
and,
just relatable, and I think unfortunately events like this, always hindsight's 20/20, and people realize maybe we took for granted the treasure that was Mike Leach, and unfortunately people go through events like this when you lose a friend or a loved one, and it's just like, God, I need to be more intentional. I need to be or let people know how I feel about them. You don't ever miss the opportunity to tell someone how much they mean to you, or so I take that intentionally. With passing my father, I got to really spend time with him and be intentional, and I think that helped me get through the process of it. But we don't have those opportunities in a case like this. I mean, it's sudden. You think you're going to see him on Monday, and it's sad, but it really, I think that's what I take away from this experience over the last 2 days. Just watching TV, watching Twitter, is just the people from all over the country met Mike Leach at, I saw him in a bar in Key West, or whatever their story was. It's kind of the same mantra that it just. Everybody generally loved the guy,
and tremendous respect from his peers, from the coaching community.
And I think that's the ultimate compliment. Is
no doubt about it.
People that are in your field that feel that way about you.
Yeah.
Even your most quote toxic rivals. Yeah. It's refreshing to see that type of relationship, and the fact that he meant that much to a lot of people.
He didn't give you a reason not to like him.
Yeah.
We should all aspire to such an accomplishment and such a life, honestly.
Absolutely.
But his life, his legacy will live on, and I'm grateful that his path crossed with the state of Mississippi.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. It was good to see him thriving here and being a part of the fabric of our state. I think he, from trips I've seen him in Starkville to the Capitol to hearing interactions from Mississippians they've had with him, I think we're all better for it.
No doubt about it. All right, Senator, where it's hard to believe, but in less than a month.
Look, we need an arc.
You guys will be paddling down to the Capitol at the rate it's going right now. It truly is less than a month is away,
January 3rd.
You'll be convening and assembling in an election year as well. So let's go ahead and dispense with that. You running for re-election?
No big secret. Yes, I intend to.
Just wanted to make sure that the audience was aware of that. I was aware, but
my wife may be looking for somebody to endorse, but it's yes, I plan on running for re-election.
What do you expect in the next session?
Well, I think the first and really the most important reason why we're there is to do a budget, to fund state government, to do the things that we need to do and are supposed to do. I think we've past 3 years, you go back to the beginning of this term and what a roller coaster it's been, through a pandemic that saw us shut down our economy and go from, I remember, I think January that year we were up maybe $240 million over estimates, and that was just absolutely unheard of. I mean, people, I can remember prior years thinking, hearing the appropriations chairman, Buck Clark, saying, man, I think we're going to have $13 million over the estimate this year. We're going to have $13 million to put into capital expense. And to sit there in January and February and be up $240 million, then all of a sudden in April be down $40-50 million in the blink of an eye, and not knowing when that nightmare is going to end. I think it speaks to now looking back at it. I'm so grateful that we collectively, and the governor, said we're not going to shut down. This is the life of Mississippians, their businesses, the economy of the state. It is a necessity, and we need to get back open and just everybody take precaution and let's keep moving on. We've got to. And I think the steps that we took to open back up and to get going again are why we're in the position. It's one of the reasons why we're in the position we're in today. But it's helped lay the groundwork to get through the last 2-3 years and be in a position where we are right now. And it's just something that I don't think anybody would have predicted or could have foreseen in January of 2020.
No doubt. I think that's absolutely right. So we're certainly from a budgetary perspective, we're doing quite well. Our rainy day fund is flush.
Statutorily full.
Yep, it's good to go. We passed fairly significant tax reform in the last session. I think you could describe it as somewhat of a compromise between the initial bill that the House sought and Speaker, and then how that got changed a little bit in the Senate, and both chambers came together. We got the governor to sign off, and I call it kind of a down payment on maybe what could be an eventual total elimination of the income tax, but it was a dang good start.
Yeah, I think it was, and there were a lot of different perspectives. There were a lot of different ideas of how to get to it. Some had triggers, some had just eliminating the income tax and raising sales tax. I mean, there were a lot of different plans on the table, and there were a lot of different iterations that were considered. I think the product that we settled on was prudent. I think it was aggressive. I think it was, we're the 5th lowest in the country, so it's not like we didn't take a big jump, comparatively speaking, to other states. And we feel like it's something that we can absorb, all the while still trying to digest the 2016 tax cut where we eliminated the franchise tax over 10 years. So we have demonstrated that we can walk and chew gum. We can do this, and we can. I think in the coming years we'll see how the economy is. I think some of us, rightly so, predicted that we're going to have some I guess you can say, consternation in the economy with inflation, and I don't know if we thought it was going to be this much, but we felt like there was going to be some with all the federal money that was pumped into the state. And so we've got extra money. How we're going to handle that will remain to be seen, but we've got some ideas I think that we'll be willing to look at.
We're at a break. Can you hang around?
Absolutely.
We can talk some more in the next segment. We've got Senator Josh
tied up over here.
We've got Senator Josh Harkins, who, by the way, is the chairperson of the Senate Finance Committee, represents District 20, Rankin County. Coming right back with Middays at Mississippi Blood Services. Stay with us.
back to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
We are back midday, Super Talk Mississippi, live from Mississippi Blood Services today, where we need blood. The rain is subsiding a bit, so come on out, and they'll take care of you here. They'll take good care of you, and you will be making a donation of blood that certainly will be used to help someone who is sick and maybe even save their life. So we've got Senator Josh Harkins in the Element Well Studios at Mississippi Blood Services in Rankin County, chairman of the Senate Finance Committee. All right, so the Lieutenant Governor has been talking about the idea of a one-time tax rebate. You've probably talked to him about that, and that's just, I think, a function of having a significant surplus. We're exceeding sine die estimates. Obviously, we're collecting more revenue than we're have appropriated and are spending. And so the Lieutenant Governor says, well, let's send some of this money back. It would be, I don't know that he's fleshed out all the details, but conceptually, a one-time payment would go out to the taxpayers of the state of Mississippi in some amount that I don't know that he's actually even proposed in an amount. What do you think about this?
Well, I think the first number I heard was the difference in what we had budgeted and what we actually collected. I think it was around $279 million. So that was a starting point, just to put a number out there. But if you look at what the difference in doing a rebate versus trying to accelerate or do some policy move, that has long-term effects that, into the future, that we don't know what the revenue is going to be like next year. And the other states, I think Georgia sent a rebate out. I think they're looking at proposing doing another one this year. Florida. It's a snapshot in time. Right now we've got an exceptional large balance of funds that are over and above what we normally do. And I think if you look historically, our collections, there's nothing like this that we've ever experienced.
Right.
This type of influx of cash. And I think I looked at the numbers with the budget folks, and I think we had $35 billion of federal money pumped into the state over and above what we normally have in a given year. During COVID, over the period of a year or two, and of that, about $15 billion of it went to individuals through PPP, EIDL, disaster assistance, unemployment compensation. That's direct payments to individuals where they've got cash in their account and they're spending money. I mean, if you look at why our revenues were up so much, our sales tax had jumped up significantly.
So let's be clear, before you go any further, just to point out to the audience, what we mean by direct is did not flow through the state, was not appropriated by the state, went directly to
people.
People, right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, yeah.
And they had that money sitting in their bank account, and COVID,
spend it.
You can't take trips, you can't really go anywhere, you're locked down. So what do? You renovate your house, you buy a new car, you do whatever you're doing while you're sitting at home. So all this money was turning over, and it was an unusual kind of an anomaly of revenue collections going on over the last year or two that has put us in this position. Now, we're not going to get a $15 billion injection to people next year or the year after. So I kind of equate it to if you had a job where you're making $100,000 a year and your boss gave you a $75,000 bonus, do you live like you're making $175 or do you live like you're making $100? We can always adjust. When we've cut taxes in the middle of a largest tax cut in state history with the largest tax cut in our state history, so we can look at going into the future. This implementation of the tax cut we passed this past year is 4 years. So this will be the first year in 23 of the tax cut where we eliminate the 4% bracket, and then we'll bring the tax rate from 5% down to 4% over the next 3 years. Well, in the midst of that, we can take a look at our economy and say, hey, guys, the revenues have not checked up. We're way over. We're over $8 billion, $8.5 billion. Well, as long as we're budgeting appropriately and we've got that room, we've got flexibility to move in the future. I just don't know if it would be with everything going on in our economy and our world right now. I don't know if now is a good time to take that that step. We can always do it in the future. We've got 4 years to implement it, and by then, the 4-year period, we'll have that tax cut and the one from 2016 fully implemented, and we'll kind of have a better indication of where we are in our economy. And I think that's what we're looking at proposing is a rebate to the citizens to pay back some of the tax dollars that they're paying.
Okay. And we also, of course, eliminated the 3% tax cut. Are we in the final year of that now?
We did that in the first 3. It took 3 years to do the 3% bracket.
Okay.
So that one is already fully
done.
gone.
Okay, gotcha.
We're going to do the 4% in 1 year. It's about a $185 million hit. One of the other things that we did last year that your listeners probably wouldn't even realize is a long time ago, somebody in the legislature, the budget was getting towards the end of the year, and they said, we don't know if we're going to have enough money. Let's make everybody prepay their June sales tax.
Yeah.
Instead of paying it in July, prepay it in June,
remember that.
so it'll hit this fiscal year, and we can make up this deficit that we're fixing to face. And so if anybody had a sales tax liability over a certain dollar amount, you had to prepay it, and you had to guess that you had to be within 5% of that number. It was crazy. You had to be pretty close to correct on it, or else you got penalized. And so we wound up saying, look, let's stop that practice. Let's do like we do the 11 other months out of the year, and you pay it the following month. We ate that in a year, and that was $176 million that we did without. So we've straightened that out, which should help our businesses not have to do something that should never have been done in the first place.
Yeah.
But we've taken a lot of steps to help with get our fiscal house in order, and I think we've done that. We've demonstrated that. We've paid off this year. We'll pay off another $306 million. We'll be under $4 billion in debt. Our statutory limit's about $13 billion.
Didn't borrow any
money last year. We're not going to borrow any money this year. And what that does, not only does that put our balance sheet in a better situation, we've got less debt, but it saves recurring dollars that would have gone to debt service.
Right.
You're looking at $45-50 million a year that we don't take make bonds this year or next year. Then we're saving those dollars. Those dollars can go to other inflationary measures that we're currently experiencing, whether it's health insurance, whether it's the cost of, just the government's not immune from inflation. It hits them too.
No doubt. And of course, more expensive debt service with interest rates rising the way they have.
Absolutely.
So that turns out to be a pretty prudent move. So with respect to the Lieutenant Governor's thoughts about this one-time rebate, are you familiar with any of the mechanics, any of the details of what he has in mind there?
I think that's fluid. I think you figure out, if you're married, filing, single, you get a certain percentage up to a cap, and basically you've got to pay in to get something back.
Percentage of your income or percentage of your
taxes paid.
Okay, well, because he said based on income, and that may have just been sort of incidental.
I think that translates to how much you pay.
It generally does, yeah. If it's taxable income, it certainly does.
And there's certainly time to figure out what that would look like, but I think it's to give back to people that are paying taxes, that are out there.
I totally agree.
Working hard, and they're experiencing inflation just like everybody else, and we give back some of that hard-earned money and let them decide what to do with it.
Yeah, I mean that makes perfect sense. We are likely facing a bit of economic headwinds, as you alluded to a couple of moments ago. That may have a negative impact on revenues.
Mm-hmm. And we kept our budget. We didn't keep our budgeting with our revenue collections. We've kept it in line, and I think it's there's a spread between what we're collecting and what we're budgeting. That's why we've got the large unallocated funds for this fiscal year coming up that we're going to be budgeting when we get into session. And we're keeping our spending down, which is we shouldn't just spend money because we have it. We should spend it on what we need to. And there are areas that we've got to spend some money on. I mean, we've got issues with corrections, we got issues with mental health, child protective services, all these things that we have to fix and get right. And I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunities to do things in the future, investment. Every year we have maintenance on state-owned buildings through IHL, through community colleges, through just state government buildings that we occupy, buildings that we're trying to renovate to put agencies in and keep them in. There's maintenance effort that continuously goes on year in, year out.
And it costs more now, too.
And it costs more. And so, with that spread, I'd love to sit down and think about trying to implement that as part of our budget versus going and borrowing money.
Okay.
If we've got this big spread of money that we're budgeting and running our government, if we've got room to add those recurring maintenance efforts into it and into our budgeting process, that's less debt. That's putting us in a way better shape. In our, with our statutory limit on our rainy day fund being full, we're in a good spot right now.
Especially when you consider the increased cost of interest, as we talked about, and the taxpayers hitting the hip for that. So it's good to stay away from that. But we got about 10, 15 seconds left. Anything else you see that is kind of high profile you expect to take up real quick?
We've got a little bit more ARP money left to put out to our counties and our cities across our state with water and sewer and stormwater projects.
Okay.
That's going to be, generational change.
Okay.
So it's there's a lot to do.
Can we revisit the ballot measure process, the citizen-initiated ballot measure process?
Absolutely.
All right. Sounds good. Senator Josh Harkins has been our guest here on Middays. We're at Mississippi Blood Services today. Come by and see us. Appreciate it, Senator.
Thank you,
always good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
You got it. We're coming right back. Stay with us.
Oh, let it snow, let it snow.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert, here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone, to Midday Super Talk Mississippi, live from Mississippi Blood Services today, where we need blood. Need you to come on out and donate. They will, once again, take good care of you out here. It's a painless and simple, convenient, fast, efficient process, and the people here are awesome. So Thomas in Greenwood, he tells us here, Rhino, you've probably seen this on the C Spire text line. We discussed this law that's been in place since 1986, I believe. Yep, 1986. Congress enacted and President Ronald Reagan signed the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act. EMTALA is what it is known as, and it's one of those acronyms that, while the folks outside of the healthcare industry may not be familiar with it, everybody in the healthcare world, especially the hospital world of healthcare, is totally familiar with it. And it basically says that Medicare participating hospitals are obligated, if they offer emergency services, they are obligated to provide a medical screening examination. It's called an MSE, the acronym, if a request is made for examination or treatment for an emergency medical condition. That's EMC, the acronym. That includes active labor, regardless of an individual's ability to pay. And it could also, of course, extend to lots of other ailments as presented by a patient, a sick person as well. Chest pains is a thing, Rhino, that comes to mind more than anything. It is my understanding from just friends in the healthcare industry that you present to the ER with chest pains, you go to the top of the triage list. Is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, pretty much.
Because time is of the essence, right? And it's not something you could say, okay, we'll just have a seat, we'll get to you later. But nonetheless, the EMTALA, this law that's been in place, it essentially obligates those hospitals that operate an emergency room and participate in Medicare, which virtually all do. They've got to stabilize the patient whether or not they can pay. And often patients are not able to pay. They don't have any sort of insurance. They're uninsured, and they just simply don't have the income or the assets to pay for whatever services they may receive that the hospital provides to stabilize their situation, stabilize their condition, and essentially nurse them back to a point where they're good to go. And That's been in place since 1986. So if you think about it, I'm certainly a big believer, a staunch advocate of free markets. And I believe, as we've said as recent as today, that an organization, when we were talking in the context of the Respect for Marriage Act, that if I, as a private company, I should have the right, I believe, should have the right to trade with whomever I want at whatever the terms that we can agree on as seller and buyer. And that should extend, if you want to extend those free market principles into the healthcare industry, well, that would mean that if someone arrives at the ER, for example, and they're ill and they're in need of care, and maybe it's an urgent situation, it's an emergent situation where if they don't receive this level of care, they could die, literally. But they can't pay for it. So if in that particular case, the hospital says, verifies whether or not they can pay, and think about lots of things you transact for in your own lives where you don't get what you're buying until you've paid for it, right? You don't walk out until you've rendered payment. Unless you've got some other arrangement made. Well, in this case, if the hospital says, nope, you can't pay for it, you're just going to have to die. And essentially, that's what EMTALA is designed to protect against. So, Thomas has sent a note to his delegates in Washington, because this is a federal law, by the way, and he is asking that the federal government essentially end EMTALA. And my question to you would be, and it's a serious question, Thomas, how should those individuals be treated? How should their situations be handled if they present to a hospital, to an ER? They clearly cannot pay. That's been determined. But if they don't receive services, they're either going to die or perhaps be affected with permanent clinical problems, permanent illness. How should that be handled? It's a serious question. It's a hard question in my view. It's not as easy as just saying, sorry, you'll have to leave the hospital and just die. We cannot take care of you because you cannot pay. But what happens is when they don't pay, we're all paying for that indirectly. Those that do pay for their medical services, either in the form of insurance, out-of-pocket, combination of the two with copays and deductibles and so forth. But somehow the hospital's got to get at least sufficient revenue to be a going concern, a viable business entity. And so it's a very complicated issue. So Thomas says, just like all entitlements, it's abused. Now we have 80% uncompensated care. That's what the mayor of Carolyn McAdams of Greenwood reported on the program, asked her twice. I think I asked her 4 times, twice in each interview, just to confirm, are you sure it's 80%? And then I kind of came at it from a different perspective. Is this 80% of the total patients that are treated by the hospital, or is this 80% of the total value cost of services provided by the hospital? And she wasn't aware, and I wasn't trying to trick her up, and it's not a problem in that she wouldn't. That's I think a little deeper issue where you need someone that's more familiar with the metrics and the financial aspect of that situation from the hospital specifically, the CFO, the CEO, maybe both. And Thomas says, you just remove the entitlement and people will find a way to pay for it themselves. Well, I don't agree with that, actually, Thomas. I mean, so you've seen the household and the per capita income of people in the state of Mississippi. It's the lowest. It's 50th. I'm sorry to report. It's been there since that data has been compiled and collected and calculated. 1929. Mississippi's been on the bottom of the list. So it's a tough situation. And by the way, it's not even an entitlement. In this case, nobody's paying for it. They're just receiving the services, essentially without having to pay, and the hospital is absorbing it, and they're trying to figure out how to way to compensate for the uncompensated care through the paying patients that have some form of insurance coverage. It could be Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance, or pay out of pocket, or a combination of all those. And then they also get disproportionate care payments as well, and meaning that if they have an outsized amount, the hospital of services being provided that is uncompensated, the federal government actually does cover some of that. It's called disproportionate share payments. Thomas says, how did people handle it before EMTALA? Here's what's complicated about that. It's a good, reasonable question there, Thomas. What is available today with respect to care is orders of magnitude in excess of what was available in 1986. I'll give you another example, because I've personally dealt with this. I'm a survivor of prostate cancer. Well, the PSA test, which is used as the gold standard to determine if a prostate's acting up and possibly showing to be cancerous or needs to be biopsied as cancerous, that didn't exist. In the old days, before that test, and now before the very well-tested surgery that's available to remove a cancerous prostate, all done through robotics, that sort of care didn't exist. You just died. That's what happened in the past. You just died, and you dealt with those circumstances. So something I've said so many times on this program is we keep inventing new medical treatments, which is fantastic. Improves the quality of life, extends life, but it all costs money. And then it becomes a complicated question. Should we not make those treatments available to people who cannot afford them? It's a serious question that is difficult to answer. I think it requires the input from a whole lot of people besides just government. You need ethicists. I think you may need clergy, for example. You need lawyers. You need scientists. You need clinicians. You need lots of people from a broad landscape of subject matter to address this question. It's a serious one. And Johnny in West Point says, but if they can get free coverage from the government, why not require them to sign up for it, a.k.a. Obamacare? It's more complicated than that, Johnny, and that only became possible with the passing of recent legislation. We'll get into that tomorrow. Coming right back with Brittany Mitchell from Mississippi Blood Services. Stay with us.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose, and if you ever saw it, you might even say it glows. And all of the other reindeer used to laugh and call him names. They never let poor Rudolph join.
Welcome back, everyone, to Midday Super Talk Mississippi, where we're in the Element Well Studios today at Mississippi Blood Services in Flowood, Mississippi, off Lakeland Drive on Treetops Boulevard. We've got Brittany Mitchell with Mississippi Blood Services joining us again to wrap up the show today. So the message is pretty simple, it's pretty clear. We need blood.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
That's what it's all about.
We've been seeing some come in here.
Hey, we sure have.
Yes,
the rain appears to have subsided a bit, as you can tell, because we don't hear it in our ears in the background, sitting in our little cubby here, the windows in the reception area and the foyer. But so folks have been coming in, and I know they're getting treated well because as a donor myself, the experience was fantastic. People here are really, really dedicated, really care a lot about what they're doing. They want to make it as painless, as convenient, as efficient as possible, and they certainly fulfill that mission, no doubt about it.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
And, yeah, y'all come on in while we've got a little dry spot here.
Yeah.
And you will receive your choice of either a stylish embossed knit beanie or a campfire mug that includes a packet of hot chocolate, and you can enter into a really huge giveaway that we have going on now through September 16th. called Santa's Big Giveaway, where you could win anywhere from an iPhone, AirPod Pros, a Dyson hairdryer. The list goes on. For more information, you can just visit msblood.com.
Yeah, and so what about our other goodies here with that we've got on the SuperTalk set?
Oh yeah, so we've got our beanie and our cup, but we also have our a little cowbell in honor of the passing of Mike Leach.
Yep.
We just extend our condolences to his family and community. So all donors at the Flowood Main Center will receive a desk-size cowbell in his honor.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool and well done. And so what about this guy here, the hat?
This beanie,
Yeah.
it's heathered gray and
Yep.
it's embossed, so it has a nice leather look at the bottom
does.
with our logo. Very stylish. We mean it when we say it.
Yeah.
And then a nice cup. Everybody needs a good mug.
Yeah.
Especially this time of year.
Yeah. Again, just for the benefit of our audience, anybody that's concerned about any sort of health issues they may have that would preclude them from donating, specifically what might be something they need to be concerned about. But my experiences in doing the show out here is pretty limited on who is not eligible.
Absolutely. It's very limited. Most people who walk in the door, they're good to go.
Yeah.
110 pounds, 17 or older, in general good health. And honestly, it's really based on medication. But if you've had the COVID vaccine, you can donate the same day. Same with the flu vaccine. I mean, those do not defer you.
No, and you don't have to have the vaccine to be qualified to donate, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So yeah. Because I know we had those questions. I think last time we were here, folks said, "Well, I haven't been vaccinated. Can I still donate?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. No. If you're not vaccinated, come on in. If we do ask
Either
that
way.
if wear a mask, for the safety of our staff and our other donors. But yes, I mean, come on in. It's very rare that you will be deferred.
Yeah, that's been my experience as well. You go through a little evaluation. I think is what it's referred to. It's really pretty simple, nothing to it. Mm-hmm. And then you're zipped on back there, and they lay you down, and it's painless process and take care of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
And once again, tell our audience this time of year where it tends to be more critical in nature, where we start running short, right? That's why we need people to come in.
Mm-hmm. During the holidays, with people traveling more, that can cause car accidents and,
Yeah.
So there's a need for blood. More people on the road. Also, people are out of town too. So
yeah, that's
before
true.
you go do that, in the season of giving, give the gift of life to someone in a hospital right now that just wants to be at home with their family too during the holidays.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I got to keep bragging about the staff. Why are they so committed? I mean, they really are. They enjoy what they do. They're happy when they're doing it. They know that they're helping someone that downstream that they likely will never know, but they know that their performance of their duty, their job function here is critical to someone else's health.
Mm-hmm. They are amazing, and you truly know that you're making a difference by doing this type of work. And it's almost really neat to think about. You may never meet these people, but even if you're having a bad day, to be able to be a part of something bigger than yourself, I think is why it feels so good to do this kind of work. And you can definitely sense that with our flubs and our receptionists, everybody. I mean, please come see us.
Sure,
it's always
seems
a
like
fun
it.
place to be.
Yep. Brittany, always good to be here. Thanks for having us. And once again, folks, Mississippi Blood Services, they need your help. They need you to come donate the gift of life blood. The locations across the state are open. They're ready and able to take care of you. And that is a wrap for us here today. Thanks, Brittany. Appreciate you having us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yep. So we're out of here today, folks, at Mississippi Blood Services. We're going to be back at SuperTalk headquarters tomorrow and then on the road to Hattiesburg, Mississippi at the Corner Market on Friday. Until then, stay safe and God bless everyone.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.